All right. I have been asked about President Donald John Trump. Obviously, he's a pretty polarising individual, and there's a lot of good reasons for that. Um, I didn't personally like the bloke when he was on TV and stuff with that apprentice. You know, you're fired and stuff like that. Never knew much about him. Didn't have anything against him, but didn't know much. Didn't really think much of him. I didn't like the sort of brash New York way of doing business, but it was good for ratings, and he made a really successful program and was quite popular, I understand. Until he won the election, and then he turned into the worst bloke in the world. Which at the time I was quite surprised. I was sure Hillary would win, and sort of thought I don't particularly like her either. But I thought, time for a lady to be president, and she's been front and centre, and I could see people voting for her, so well and good. But turned out as it turned out, and all hell's broken loose ever since. To the point where I think within like half an hour of him being inaugurated, the Washington Post um, wrote an article on him, but the impeachment proceedings had begun, and I don't think you're in power when you have the inauguration. But I've since found out what the media has told everyone was a really poor turnout at his inauguration is rubbish. The pictures you saw from that, he's hugely popular amongst the working class people and middle and poor. He has a great following amongst the black community and the Hispanic community. It is a fact, and what I'm going to share with you today about President Trump are facts. You can go verify them for yourself. I'm not sitting here doing research for people, but I'm not going to tell you stuff I don't know to be true. So there it is. Well, before the current situation hit us, apparently, if you say certain words, like one that starts with V, Facebook will ban you, or censor you. So the current situation, prior to that, the US economy had never been so good. He's gotten people back into work over there. He's done that by holding China to account. He has put in a lot of incentives for companies to leave China and either return to America or he's set up a really good arrangement with India. And I believe that the angst between China and India of late has been off of the back of that. I'm sure there's probably some other intricacies that I'm not aware of. So basically, he's getting people back in work. He's allowing farmers to farm. The prior administration had put in some crazy sort of regulations, such as if you had standing water on your property, that was considered a natural water occurring body of water, and farmers were being told they couldn't farm because they had, an area that would get swampy during the wet season, stuff like that. So he lifted all those restrictions. He's gotten farming back up and running. He's gotten the oil industry back up and running. I believe America now produces more oil than they need, so they're actually exporting it, whereas prior to previous administrations had set up agreements with the Saudis essentially to buy their oil in return for them using the US dollar as the currency, which made the US dollar sort of a default currency. But I don't want to world currency. I don't want to get too far off the track here, and I'm not the greatest financial whiz as far as all that goes. There's a heap of allegations around Epstein. He has been an associate of Epstein's. Yeah, they were friends, and certainly been to a lot of social gatherings with him and many, many other people who are less than savoury types. But this was back before he was in politics, and he, part of how he's been able to get so far the way he has now dealing with these people is that he actually knows them, he's done business with them, and he understands them. He's constantly... Look, when he was first elected, I was stunned. I was quite surprised. I think I might have even posted something like on Facebook, something like, now we get to see what happens when the lunatic runs the asylum. I have since realised what the reality is. I was very surprised by the rampant anti-Trump narrative in mainstream media all the way across, just crazy. I'm like, wow, why do they hate him so much? And that's actually an angle that has woken a lot of people up who sort of aren't all that interested, but they saw this hatred for Trump, and it's like, oh, what's going on here? And it's actually caused people to look into it. And for a few people who are sceptical and dubious of the system, and they know that the mainstream media are simply there to spruik the messages of their masters, that probably straight away gave Trump some credibility, the fact that the mainstream media hated him so much. He cut all ties with Epstein after it was revealed that Epstein was grooming the daughter of one of his employees at Mar-a-Lago, whatever his resort in Florida is. He's not had anything to do with Epstein since that time. Prior to that, he had travelled on one of Epstein's airplanes with Epstein's son, I believe, from Florida to New York. It was not the Lolita Express, and he has not been to that island. Contrary to what people are putting out there now, and this is going by the flight logs, this isn't hearsay. The flight logs are evidence of who has been to the island, and on those flight logs it shows Bill Clinton went there 26 times. On a few of those occasions he actually dumped his Secret Service detail. Every ex-president has a Secret Service detail with them wherever they go, and he actually went a few times without them. What went on in that plane is just as relevant as what went on in on the island, because there's all these various types of law, and when you're on a plane in the air, the law is different somehow. Again, I'm not no legal. So he has not been to the island, okay? Whereas Bill Clinton's, Hillary was there 6 or 7 times, Bill Gates has been there, we could go on and on and on. That island, what it was used for was to blackmail people. So Epstein's primary role was to lure people into these parties and stuff like that, and with the on offer the sex with beautiful young ladies, oftentimes very young ladies and boys, and they would be recorded in those acts, and different politicians from around the world would be invited to go and party with him. The same thing happened at his apartment in New York. People would be invited to come along and party, great time, celebrities everywhere, how good am I going, and look at this, I get this little extra bonus, bit of sugar for the party, and then next thing you know, I don't know how they do it, but an email arrives or a DVD or something might arrive in the mail, you put it in, and here you are doing whatever you might have done with underage children. So from there on, they've got you. Okay, the cabal's got you, and that was that was part of his role in the whole big setup was to blackmail people, to catch people, and that's why he ran all these young kids as well as his own perversions. So if Trump had done anything anywhere with Epstein, don't worry, that vision and footage would be out there. You think of how rampant the mainstream media is to find anything on him. I can guarantee you, if there was one skerrick of evidence that it incriminated Trump in anything like that could get him out of his position in the Oval Office as president, then it would have been done years ago. It would have been done within weeks of him being elected. It would have been done before the election, probably, to completely discredit him. Although I am led to believe the deep state didn't realise they were in as much strife as they are until after he was elected. They weren't sure if he was compromised in one of them or not. So the legal system says you're innocent until proven guilty. If there's any proof, bring it forth. I want to know about it. I'm not sitting here defending any individual. Pedophilia and crimes against children are the most heinous thing you can do, in my opinion. And when you look at his record as to the number of pedophile rings that have been broken up, the sex slave trafficking, the numbers are phenomenal. Why isn't that being reported, Wouldn't you think it's of interest that there's hundreds of thousands of people now in prison for child sex trafficking and pedophilia charges? Rings all around the globe have been broken up due to the efforts of the Trump administration and their allies around the globe, because it is an international process. The reason that wall is so important is not so much worrying about illegal immigrants coming in and trying to live a decent life and get a job in America. It's to stop the human trafficking. So kids coming, people talk about, oh, the kids are with their parents. No, generally they're with what they call coyotes. Coyotes' role is to move people from Mexico into America, and they're some of the most unconscionable people on the planet. If you're a kid or a woman, you'll probably get raped along the way. You will give them all your money with the hopes of being taken X, Y, and Z, and you'll end up in A, B, and C. Essentially, those kids or people will end up in the human trafficking industry, sex slavery, and then some of the more unfortunate ones, especially the kids, will actually will be used as part of occult satanic ceremonies, and this is what he is exposing, which is freaking these people out. So that is why there is so much rampant anti-Trump, and what you'll find is, in time, and you don't have to believe me now, and if you think I'm speaking rubbish, just turn this off and go find something else to do. What you'll find, though, in time is that everything he's been accused of doing with colluding with Russia, has actually been what the deep state and the Democratic Party, but I'll go into that a little bit more later on. The two parties, and not all Democrats are bad and not all Republicans are good. It's not that simple. There are plenty of people who are Republicans who are part of the bigger picture who need to be taken down too. But that is why they're so freaked out, because what he is exposing is heinous. And there are a lot of high-profile people, a lot higher profile than you would ever imagine, right across politics, business, all religions, Hollywood, the music industry. It's just rampant. And maybe down the track we'll get into some episodes where I can go through some of the symbology and stuff, but I highly recommend the Edge of Wonder, guys. If you go to YouTube, Edge of Wonder, Rob and Ben, they do wonderful research. Ben's wife is actually Chinese, and they have relatives over there, so their insights and intel on China are next to are as good as any, and probably better than most. And they do wonderful research, and they back it up. And they don't have an agenda. They've just worked out who are the good guys and who are the bad guys, and so that's why they would seem to support certain people, and probably why I seem to support certain people. I'm just supporting good. I want to see this evil driven out, and it needs to come from the top, and it is so ingrained all around the globe. Australia is one of the most locked down countries. New Zealand, and possibly even more. Canada is just turning into a soy boy funny farm at the moment, and that's why we're all watching the USA so closely, because if they get taken down and these globalists take over what's going on there, then we're all screwed. They've already done a good job of undermining a good part of Europe, a lot of South America, throughout Asia, but the big jewel in the crown is the US, because once they go, then Australia, Canada, New Zealand, Great Britain, see you later. We'll all end up living as serfs. But that is what people refer to as the Patriots, who Trump is a member of the Patriots. He was recruited for this role by a group of patriots who knew what they had to do at this point in time in history, and they needed someone who was not compromised. If there was anything other than the fact that he's had a few affairs with grown women, I mean, and I'm not sure there's many billionaires in the world who haven't done something like that. He has not broken any laws. He certainly is not a pedophile or a sex offender of any way, shape or form. Certainly as a young man, very wealthy man, he enjoyed a good, healthy social life. But if there was any dirt on him, I can guarantee you it would have been dug up and slammed in your face so friggin' hard you wouldn't know what day it was. So as a result, all they can do is put out innuendo and suggestion and projection, and a lot of what they project on him is what they are actually guilty of, and they're just relying on people sitting there watching the TV in the corner thinking that is the God's only truth, and all it is propaganda. They're telling you what they want you to think so that they can get their agenda through in the outcome that they want, and that outcome is not good for you or I, my friends, let me guarantee you. Not good at all. Some people you think are good people are evil to the bone, and that will all be exposed. And they're trying to stop him from exposing it, hence all these things that you see and hear about him. The other thing I will say is that there are a lot of allegations thrown at him and people who support him with what's called parliamentary privilege. I assume they call it the same thing over there, but basically if you're in Congress, in the House or in the Senate, you can say whatever you damn well want. You've got privilege. You can't be held accountable for that. But off of the back of some of these allegations and suggestions people have made, they have held congressional hearings, in which case you're being called by Congress, which is like the equivalent to our Senate, the upper house, if you like. It's not exactly the same system, but they're not too far off. You're being called in front of the Senate to actually, or no, Congress, yeah, the whole kit and boodle. I think you have Senate hearings and congressional hearings, yeah, and I think then the House can also have their hearings, and they'll have vaguely different names, whatever. But you know what I mean. You get called before Parliament and you are under oath, and not one of those people, when they've been under oath and are therefore liable for what they say, not one of them have ever backed up the allegations or accusations they've made when they're under oath. And they are so desperate to get him out that, let me tell you. Now, what's going to happen coming up here is you see all this disrest. You may not be aware of it, but there are certain cities in America that are getting looted every night by what are essentially domestic terrorists, that being Antifa and Black Lives Matter. And of course, Black Lives Matter, all lives matter. That's crazy. Basically, I wrote down a quote from someone, from Malcolm X, that's right. Where did I put that? The Negro Revolution. So these, it's great. I work for an Aboriginal cooperative. I'm very sensitive to all walks of life. We're all equal, and I think everyone needs to be looked out for. And certain groups have over time been, have been downtrodden. No doubt about it. No doubt whatsoever. But the way out of that is not through conflict. Look at Martin Luther King, peaceful protests and rallies. These people they seem to be like hired terrorists, and they're just trashing the joint. And I don't know if you know, but a few of the Democratic governors, which is the equivalent to our state premiers, so let's say Dan Andrews, they've decided that because of this COVID situation, they're going to release prisoners for their own safety from prison. And these are violent offenders. Well, guess who are getting recruited and paid to be a part of these domestic terrorist groups in Antifa and Black Lives Matter and MS-13? A number of those released prisoners who are bad people. They haven't been rehabilitated. They love it, and they get paid to go out and loot the joint. And it's crazy. Now, you're not seeing much of that on mainstream media because it doesn't look good, but what they're trying to do over there is create so much unrest that people the fear overtakes everything. And we'll talk about fear and what it does to you down the track, because that is basically how we have been manipulated by so long, by just being kept in constant fear. I don't watch the mainstream news hardly at all. If it happens to come on and I can't get to it soon enough to change it or turn it off or put something else on, I can't believe people actually are able to sit and watch the TV every night. It's just all fear-based narrative, and you can frame things however you want to make it sound a certain way. So that said, I want everyone to be safe. I want all the vulnerable and elderly and frontline workers. This is a real thing, but at the end of the day, the numbers probably aren't suggesting it's any worse than a bad flu season, and we never shut down schools or stop people from actually having community and playing footy, playing sport, going to the pub, going to the restaurant. Our immune systems are there for a reason. You protect the vulnerable, but you don't ruin your society because of a situation that's happened that is actually less dangerous than some of the other things that have come through, such as the H1N1 flu, and we never took these sort of precautions. So that your suicide rate's going through the roof. Your domestic violence rate is going through the roof. I work in that type of sector, and I can tell you firsthand. And at the end of the day, we might find that nearly as many people die from suicide and domestic violence as they do from any other given condition that might be relevant at this point in time. So all of this is they've got to get Trump out of office, and so they're blaming him for everything. Fact of the matter is, Fauci said, "Don't worry about it. No need to ban travel." The WHO, World Health Organization, criminal organisation, they said, "Yeah, no need to ban travel from China or anything like that." Trump banned that travel well before he was told he should. Okay, and now the narrative is, "Oh, Trump didn't act quick enough. It's all his fault." It's just not true. They're straight out lies. Now, innocent until proven guilty. And if you want evidence that Trump is innocent of these different things that he's accused of, from anywhere from, well, at one stage he was urinating on prostitutes on a Russian hotel bed. What billionaire needs to go to friggin' Russia for some perverted... What the fuck? I mean, it's just crazy, you know. He's brash, he's loud, he's got the worst friggin' hairdo, his orange skin, what the fuck is going on with that? But the man is doing good, and he's looking out for our most vulnerable. He's putting people back in work. The US economy is stronger. Even with the current situation, the US current economy is currently stronger than it was at the end of the former administration. So that's telling you something, that even under this duress and lockdown of the country, that he's been able to build the economy to a point where it's still better than it was when he took it over. So if given a fair chance, once he wins the next election, which he will, and without unlawful interference, he'll certainly win. You'll be seeing that the polls are all saying that that Biden is leading. The polls also said that Hillary was leading. This is called projection. They're getting in front of the narrative so that if he does win, they can turn around and say Russia collusion, Russia helped him out because he was losing the polls. So that's how you get ahead of the narrative and set it up for down the track, and that's all they're doing. They did exactly the same thing with Hillary. They spent $30 million on the inquiry into Russia and found nothing. Okay, and the whole time they were doing that, they weren't running the country, just sitting on their hands. Again, it's not Democrat, Republican, not left or right. It's not black and white. It's good and bad, and you have a fight to the death currently going on. And if they could kill him, they would. I think he might have gone into a slightly low-key situation because what he's done with the pharmaceutical companies, it's another way of bringing the wealth back to the US and giving US people their livelihoods and jobs back. He has cut the price of pharmaceuticals massively. So there were pharmaceuticals produced in the US that you could buy, say in Canada, for about 20% of what you would pay for in the United States. So he's made it more all equitable. The United States have been getting bent over and royally dealt with, and up until now, and he's actually wrested a lot of that back for his country, and he's the president of that country. That's what he's there to do. He's not there to look out for China. He's not there to look out for the World Health Organization, who the US paid $400 million a year to, when China only paid $40. Why? If you look at the payments that the US make to all of these NATO, to all these alphabet agencies, globalist alphabet agencies, the US is paying way more than any other country. Why? Why? What have they done wrong? I've got 3 kids who are US citizens. I sit there and I go, you don't want that going on with your country. If we've got a good organisation we all should support, then let's pitch in and do it by capita or your GDP or whatever it is, work it out that way. But it's crazy that the US is putting so much of their taxpayers' money into these alphabet agencies, and the money just gets funneled away to God knows where. And he's getting that money back for his people, for the people he's there to represent. He has done what he said he would do, and the cabal who run the mainstream media hate him for it because he's exposing their evil and their wrongdoings. Okay, so you got any inkling of any evidence whatsoever, innocent until proven guilty. Let me tell you, if you think you can sit at home here in Australia or wherever you might be without the resources that the people who hate him have, who have been doing nothing for the last 4 years but trying to find anything they can on him, then you're kidding yourself. So if you sit there and say, I know he's this, I know he's that, no, you're wrong. You don't know that. You have no evidence. No one has been able to provide a skerrick of evidence other than hearsay. And as soon as they're put in front of a congressional hearing or whatever it might be called, a Senate hearing, and they are under oath, they fold like a deck of cards. They've got nothing to say. And that tells a story in itself. Okay, when someone is hated so much, there's a reason for it. And you don't see any of the love. You don't hear any of the good stuff that he does. It's only bad. They cut up his... if you watch his... He talks like a doofus sometimes. Some of the things he says, he repeats himself. I will say this. He's often doing that to punk the cabal. He'll missay things or he'll misspell words in his tweets, which draws a lot of, anything people can hang shit on him, they do. He's actually doing it deliberately because he's letting the cabal know that he knows something or he's aware of something. A good example is the term smocking. So smocking is this weird sexual thing where you go to a party and you're all naked and you paint each other. It's called smocking, apparently. And some of these weirdos were having a bit of a get-together and he knew about this, and this is how he lets them know that they've been exposed and they're going to be exposed. And in one of his tweets, I think it was the phrase smoking gun, but he spelt it smocking gun. And of course, mainstream media went to town and, well, what an idiot, orange buffoon, blah, blah, blah. He was sending a message saying, I know what you're up to and I know what you're doing and you're going to be exposed. Now, that said, consenting adults, behind closed doors, hey, have at it, do your thing. But these people are guilty of heinous things, far worse than anything like that. But he's just letting them know that he's across what they're up to, and he's not on his own. He's a team. He was recruited to do this a number of years ago by the people who have been working very hard, and he may well have been preparing for this himself. Something else I'll tell you about him, he was JFK Jr.'s best friend growing up. He was a Democrat for a long time. He considered running as a Democrat earlier on, apparently. He did actually have a crack at the presidency as an independent. Didn't go any good. He realised he needed to be a part of a party. I don't put anything past the planning that's gone into this, so I don't know when he knew that this would be his run at it, but certainly it's been very well prepared and very well planned. And there are a lot of very good people who are working very hard to look after us and look after our best interests, and he's certainly one of them, that's for sure. So don't have to like the bloke, but look at what he's done, look at the score he's put on the board, look for yourself. The mainstream media is not going to tell you. The project on Channel 10 are not going to give you an accurate read on what's going on. My God almighty, is that an extraordinary show to watch. And yeah, just the 7 o'clock news, 6 o'clock news on Channel 7, just don't watch it. Do your own research. Go and have a look at whitehouse.gov. Go through documents, go to court documents and see what the arrest numbers are and what they've been arrested for, where they've been arrested. Look at the job numbers, all the statistics, they're there. You won't see it on the TV. So try and get out of that mindset of you believe everything that comes at you through the TV, and if someone has an official title, then they must be telling the truth, and every chance they don't give a rat's ass about you. They're using you to get their own personal ends. So be mindful of that. Identity politics. Oh, here's another thing about Trump that's really interesting. His uncle was a professor at a university. I can't tell you the actual university, but Nikola Tesla, if you don't know about him, so the Tesla cars and that's got nothing to do with him. They're just using his name. But he was around when Thomas Edison was around, and he's a great inventor, and apparently he had discovered things like free energy. So it's essentially, some sort of mechanism to power your home out of like a shoebox-sized little contraption. And J.P. Morgan was the backer for he and Edison. But Tesla wanted his technology to be free. He wanted people to have free energy, and the other breakthroughs that he was making that would just make our lives so much better. JP Morgan, being the cabal central banker that he is, was only all about money. These people worship money. So he ditched Tesla and took on Edison, and Edison apparently took a fair bit of credit for a lot of work that Tesla actually did and a lot of discoveries that he made. Anyway, Tesla died, and Trump's uncle was charged with the task of going into his laboratories, I guess, and disseminating the information, collating everything and disseminating that information. Now, there's not really anything come out of that. I don't know what happened. I have my suspicions. I'd love to think that there was quite a bit of information that Trump's uncle found and was able to hold on to, knowing to keep it in the right hands. And apparently, President Trump was very close with his uncle. He's constantly made out to be like a buffoon, which isn't that hard with his dodgy hairstyle and the fake tan and the way he speaks and stuff sometimes. And I do wonder if he does it knowing full well that will happen to him. But he's an extraordinarily intelligent man. He knows everything that he's doing. People who are close to him absolutely adore him. He's got a younger brother who just thinks he's his brother. That's fair enough. But his relationships with those who are close to him are wonderful. Some, bad breakups in the past with former wives, but plenty of us have gone through that. So it's nothing to be judging someone on. The man likes women. He's devoted to his current wife, who I think is an absolute star. And he's devoted to doing the right thing by the United States, and in doing so, he's doing wonderful things for the rest of the world. So try to get your information from a non-biased source. If you don't like what I'm saying, try not to break your computer, or just stop watching. Yeah, just stop watching. Or do your own show and send it to me. I'd love to watch. All right, guys, see what else we get going at some stage.